Well, you're coming back to Manton, thank goodness.
Yeah, it's been a long time. How long has it been, do you think, Matt?
I know it's been almost exactly 7 years. I want to show you. I've got
Wow.
the poster here, the Aaron Harvey watercolor.
I remember.
How clear it's going to get.
That's very cool.
Troubadour. And the
Yep.
date on here is April 26th, 2018. So just 3 days past the seventh anniversary of that show.
Wow. Amazing.
So at that time, yeah, it's been a while. Um, the Manton Education Council was about a year old at that time and had formed because the local school was threatened with closure, which eventually did happen sometime around then. And the kids started getting bused to town, and eventually the school was put on the market.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so I mean, it's kind of it's a story of struggle, but also of triumph for the Education Council since then. Um, we are just getting going, and you came and helped us, give us a shot in the arm. And
I'm glad that was fun and it was a good time.
oh, it was such a good time. I just remember the colors and the textures, you and your trucker hat, and you played a number of songs that you were getting ready to release on
That's
your
right.
your solo album. But I think a bunch of them were new to me at least at that time, and they're some really fine songs.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, it was a real moment, and more or less since then we've been thinking about having you back in one form or another, and in a more rocking outfit was definitely one of the fantasies. Especially since the old store that you played in the bar section of it
Yeah.
that had been there since 1902 has mostly been torn down. It's a new building that
Oh,
maintains
wow.
the footprint of that old the old main part of the store. But where the bar was, and there was like an old barn out to the side, that's all been completely demolished. Many tons of concrete poured, but a
Mhm.
big green space preserved outside there. And
Nice.
when we saw that taking shape, we thought, well, this would be a real nice spot for like maybe a more raucous kind of an event. And
Perfect. Well, that's what we're going to bring.
good, bring the rock.
Yeah.
So I just want to I'm thinking like a retrospective of these past 7 years. Um, the the Education Council has like I want to just briefly share what's been up with that, and so to
Right.
give an idea of like what this is about from our end, but I'd like to spend most of our time talking about your work since then.
Okay. Great.
But the Education Council was just a year old when you came the other time and not really sure of its direction. And the goal was to start a school, and that's still our goal, but it's not an easy climb. And what we have now, 7 years later, is a pretty robust after school program because now that the kids are being taken into town,
Into Reading or what's
into Red Bluff. So,
Red Bluff?
it's like a 45 minute drive in a bus. And, there's little kids with high schoolers, and the closing down the school and busing the kids to town didn't really sit well with a lot of us. And so it gave a real purpose to the Education Council to form with this goal of creating a school, but more broadly to do what we can to promote education in town, mostly with kids, but with
Yeah.
adults too. So
Oh, cool.
the ones that get bused have an after school program, and there's also a homeschool support program now that's
Oh, cool.
smaller, but a very valued part of it. We've been
How
able
many
to
how many kids get homeschooled in your community, do you think?
homeschooling itself. Well, like the number that participate in our program is maybe around like 10 or 12. And I
Mhm.
suspect there's some other homeschoolers around here who aren't part of it now.
Yeah.
The after school program, I think regularly has a couple dozen kids. Overall, the number's around 50 students that get served one way or another through the program. So we give them a safe place to go after they get off the bus, give them like some good snacks, a chance to get tutored on homework, a chance to recreate in the gym. Um, Maybe the biggest piece of news is that we, together with another nonprofit, were able to purchase back the school campus. So
Ah, that's a huge piece of it,
it's
huh?
huge. It's huge. So that's that group's called Manton Parks, and the idea is to make it a park-like atmosphere, but also have an event space, meeting spaces, a maker space. We have things like pottery and glasswork that we're getting going, and so that's very exciting. That's been within the last year or so. We held the first Apple Festival under our local ownership this past year.
Nice. Congrats. That's really
Thanks.
cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a struggle trying to do something like this out here, especially in a small place where there's not tons of money. And so we're like constantly doing fundraisers, applying for grants and trying to stretch the budget. And so just recently, it's been a little bit difficult. And with the bank account getting low, they're having to look at scaling back even some of the stuff that we've started to do.
Ah,
It's normal, you
it
grow up,
is normal, but I never like to hear that.
doesn't feel good. Marla's been not too happy about that, but we're doing what we can and we'll keep at it. And there's a bunch of kids here who benefit from it. And I know from my own experience, and maybe you do too, that sometimes just somebody caring about you and knowing something about you can make a big difference in how you encounter the world, how motivated you are to try things. I was doing a little tally, and I realized that the last 7 years have been pretty productive for you too. By my count, the Mother Hips have put out 4 albums.
That's
So
right.
Chorus and um,
Glowing Lantern.
Glowing Lantern and When We
What?
Disappear, and then California Current
That's right.
past fall. And
Yep.
then go ahead.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I wish it was 7, but 4 isn't bad.
Well, okay, well, it is 7 if we add in the 3 albums that you did solo,
That's
because
true.
right around that time, I remember you told me you had already a couple albums of material that were basically in the can,
That's
and
correct.
that was Sort of Surviving, and then Gone with the Windshield, and then I think shortly after that you put together the Hag Heaven album.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it is 7. Okay.
So
Well,
7 albums in 7 years. I mean, to me, that's pretty legit.
it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but it's good. It's good work. There's some other recordings too that I made that I have not released that I'll release someday, not in a big rush.
Someday.
I like to I like to just capture stuff. I'm really more interested in writing and recording
Yeah.
than I am in releasing
Uh-huh.
albums. I'd rather just make sure I have documentation of that time period of my creative
Yeah.
life, and they'll come out someday. There's no rush. There's plenty of music floating around in the world as it is right now. So
Yes, there is a lot of music out there now.
yes,
Um, one piece of this that I want to ask you about is, around the time you were here in Manton before, you you were searching for a place, and at least briefly, you even considered our humble little mountain hamlet.
I certainly did. It's a beautiful place.
What was the appeal for you of Manton, although you didn't settle here?
I didn't, well, there's always other considerations.
Sure.
Location
Right.
for occupation is a big one for most of us.
Right. Yeah.
And being close to my parents
Yeah.
was the main consideration for me. And fortunately and unfortunately for me, they live in Marin County, which is
Huh.
where I live, and their house is just I just walked there and back this morning. It's a 2 mile hike from my house. From the back of my house, I can walk over the mountain and walk
Wow.
to their house. And so I was able to do that in 40 minutes. But I drive, but I'm trying to get out in this beautiful weather. So
Sure.
they live just a couple miles away from me, which is really nice. And I like to be able to be near them to assist them in their whatever they might need. They're both over 80 years old now. So
It's good to hear they're both still around. I wasn't sure I was going to ask you about that, but I have a sense that you're pretty close to your parents, and that's really
extremely
nice to
close.
hear.
Yeah, always have been. And my dad, unfortunately, we had to put him into a memory care facility
Sorry
just
to hear that.
yeah, about 2 months ago, which was,
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this can relate to that. It's certainly not a
yeah,
unique
not at
experience,
all.
but it's pretty heartrending and
Yeah.
very challenging. But he's nearby. He's in Novato, which is I'm in Fairfax here, and Novato is about 30 minutes north of here. So I'll go see him when we're done here. So I see him quite often, which is nice. And he still remembers who we are,
Well, that's good.
which is really nice. Yeah.
That's yeah, it's the kind of the increments of these things, right?
It's incredibly difficult to see your father um, have to go through this at this point in his life. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's mind blowing,
yeah.
but it's what happens.
It does. It does. We age, we get old, people die. It's part of this place that we're in here. And
That's all. Those are the things that are for sure. As one of the few things we know for sure are those things you just said.
yeah, we know it, and sometimes we can wonder what it means, but there's kind of a hard ground underneath it that we can rely on in a way.
Yeah, and you have to. We all have to just. You got to go through it, and you have to survive it, and you have to figure out how it makes sense in the best way you can. Even pets, like I have
Oh yeah.
a beloved. I'll show you.
Yeah.
My cat Robbie, who was
Robbie.
he was such
Yeah.
an awesome cat.
Robbie's
And
kind of a famous cat,
I
isn't that
mean,
right?
he got around.
Yeah. Is
He
he no longer
certainly
with us, Tim?
no, he passed on in August, and I buried him up the hill in the backyard,
Oh,
which
good.
was again like incredibly sad, but there's an acceptance and there's a lesson, there's learning to it as well. Pets, because they have a shorter lifespan, of course,
Yeah.
they sort of show us how to deal with loss on a slightly smaller scale, maybe. It didn't feel small at the time,
No, it doesn't feel
but
small, but we're
but
taught
it's
to think of the animals differently, aren't we?
the love is a different kind of love. We love animals, and animals love us in a different way than humans because it's I'm not sure why, but it's simpler.
It's simple.
It's
It's real
simple,
good.
and so it's
Yeah.
more pure. It's not as there's not as
Yeah.
many. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, anyways, um, that happened.
Yeah.
I miss him, but he's nearby. I visit
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
I'm thinking of your songs have one of the things that I really like about the work you've done in this period, let's say that in the last 7 years, is that it seems like you're writing about more complex situations emotionally, maybe in life, in some ways more delicate songs, more tenderness, maybe.
I would
Um,
agree.
but I realized too, as you were speaking, I thought of a kind of an older song, The Lesson for Later,
Yeah.
thinking
That
of
was a
animals and how they
that was
show.
about a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, the passing away of a horse. Yeah.
Mm. So that's something that you've made part of your work. It's not new. It's been there for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's a big topic. It's a very rich. vein to prospect for sure.
Yeah.
Death touches all of us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things to write about and talk about, so we don't have to stay on that topic.
No, yeah, it's true. You in your work, I see a lot of things happening, and if I try to think about what it's all about, it's like it's hard to put a limit around it. It's just kind of like life, thinking about this interview and certain of the themes that I thought might be nice to touch on. Um, and realizing that there's not one particular thing, and to me that's a sign of the art that you bring to it, that whatever it seems like, a kind of a multifaceted approach to expression that you bring, and and
I
yeah.
I agree. I think that as I've sort of progressed through life and songwriting as a way of life, I've found more power in kind of an impressionistic approach where I'll collect images or language passages that I find moving in some way, or I feel like sound good or feel good to think about or just to hear in your ears. And then oftentimes I will just kind of collect those seemingly disparate images and put them together. Wouldn't say I force them together, but I just sort of arrange them together and then see how that feels when the relationship between those kind of separate images come together, and see how that feels. And oftentimes it's not so much like a topical effort. It's not like I'm going to write a song about this specific thing or this idea. It's a lot of different ideas that I put together and then kind of see how what what idea is most prominent at the end once you hear it all together. I don't
The
really
difference.
care about if it's about something specific. That's not really my concern. My concern is just that it is evocative in some way to someone else
Yeah.
and to myself. But
Stimulate the imagination, touch the heart, these kind of
yeah,
things.
and it might
Sound
mean
good in the ear.
yeah, and if some and depending on the listener's life experience or their current emotional state, the impression of that song is very individual.
Mhm.
That seems to be, I'm not really the kind of person who likes to um, tell anyone what's right or what's wrong or
I've noticed.
this is how you do something. I mean, I like to share some knowledge that I might have gained through experience, but I don't really have like a message like this is what you should think or this is what you should do. I don't, that's not really of any interest to me.
Yeah.
So the way to avoid that is just to kind of put a bunch of ideas together and then see how it feels when you hear those in that particular juxtaposition, which will, like, as I said, which will be an individual, every person who hears it will have a slightly different impression of what it means. Or some people might listen to it and say that it doesn't mean anything.
Well,
But I think as listeners
powerful
of
down.
music that we all are, there's a natural part of our brains that tries to make sense of anything that comes into our
Sure.
senses. And so
Yeah.
there must be a reason why this guy said this and this
Right.
and this. And as long as that illusion is intact,
Yeah.
then I've done my job.
Sometimes things point into obscure areas, but seem to point nonetheless in some direction.
Yeah, and it's not really me pointing to anyone in any direction. It's just saying, here's some stuff that I observed.
Yeah.
See what you think.
You mentioned liking to document what's going on with you creatively, uh, and without so much regard for making it into a product, right? And
Yeah,
so one of the,
it's probably a fault of mine, but
well, I mean, one of my initial
nevertheless,
reactions is, you should share that stuff.
I will. I will,
You
or
know,
someone will someday.
yeah,
There's no
yeah.
rush.
But I think I can understand it a bit and certainly respect it. I want to ask you along those lines. The you put a studio in your place that you got there,
Yeah,
and
I can actually show you a little bit. I can show you around because it's
I was just hoping you would tell a little bit about that, and if you want to walk around, that's fine. But I'd love to hear, maybe about the process of putting it together, and especially um, what it's meant to you to have that resource, how it has, what role it's played in your creative process to have that in your house, to have it as a hub for your work.
well, largely the decision to have the studio in my home, which is not a large home, was a practical one. I have had times in my life where I've rented out commercial space
Yeah.
and had like a more proper recording studio, and it's it has its benefits, but it also has its drawbacks. It's very expensive for one thing, but here in my house, I mean, I can show you around, but it's like, you all come in the front door. Here's my front yard, my
Yeah.
parking lot, and my neighbor's RV, and a very nice view here. I've got really lucky,
It
but
is.
I have like my dining room table slash desk
Yeah.
and the kitchen. And then the living room, which is right here, is where I record drums, and this is where all the actual instruments get recorded. So, I've got some microphones are all under plastic bags at the moment, but lots of microphones set up. This is all just for recording various vocals, and the headphone mixers, so the person performing can mix their own sound so they hear exactly what they want. I have a whole bunch of
Yeah.
guitar amps here. These are all like acoustic control panels. Few of my many guitars out,
Yeah.
and piano, the Yamaha U1 piano, which is a great piano, and then through here, this is like my deck out here.
Lovely.
It's very nice. Yeah, I was had a friend. I have a friend who owns some property up in Mendocino, and he has a whole bunch of redwood, and so he milled all this redwood for me last year, and I built a deck out of it. And then in here we have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you do.
Microphone locker, lots of guitars in their cases here. Leslie speaker, Hammond organ,
Wow.
Juno 6 synthesizer, Wurlitzer 200A piano, reverb tank, and all my outboard recording gear, microphone preamps, compressors, patch bay, computer, speakers, some more outboard gear. And so this is kind of where everything that's being played in the living room is all. I ran a bunch of cabling underneath the
Huh.
ground, so I don't have to have cables strung through everywhere. So it's kind of set up
Very cool.
like a real recording studio, but it's just in my little house.
That's great. You've used it, at least in part, on some of your recent projects. Do you find it's
Yeah.
like, is it too limited to do like a whole album there, or
No,
what's
no,
the
no. It's usually just because it's such a small house. Usually, I try to get bands to rent a recording studio for a couple days and get the drums and bass and stuff recorded, and then we come here and do everything else. But I set up drums here all the time. I've made dozens of records right in this room,
wow.
and it's tight, but it's nice because it's like a home. You can look out the window, see this really nice view. It just does. A lot of studios like don't have any windows, so you go in there and And there's a reason for that. It doesn't, glass doesn't sound great,
Yeah.
but it's kind of worth being in this environment. A lot of bands choose to record here because they like the way it feels when you're here. You can open the doors and there's breeze and birds singing, and it's a good spot.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you've done even more producing than I'm aware of.
I do it a lot. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I am fortunate enough to get a lot of bands that want to come here and make a record or finish a record or have me mix a record. So um, I would say probably 5 or 6 records a year that I make
Yeah.
aside from my own stuff.
Can you give me an idea how you view your role when you're doing this, when you're producing? What is that?
Well, it, it's a loose definition, you know. Being a producer is kind of, it could be a lot of different things. It could be anywhere from helping develop the songs from the beginning, like actually co-writing some stuff. And then I like to, after that, you know, I like to actually engineer the stuff myself. So usually when I'm producing a record, I'm also engineering it, which means I'm placing the microphones, choosing the microphones, making sure that all the instruments sound good, and then depending on the artist, giving direction as to the arrangements of the songs, the tempos, the key. Like maybe your voice would sound better if you sang it a little higher than the way it is now. Things like that. And just critiquing the performances. It varies though. Some people don't want that kind of input. Some people are, they have it figured out their own way. There's a vast array of different approaches that the musicians bring, and you just have to adapt to that. If they want more help, I can happy to offer it, but I'm also happy to keep my mouth shut and just let them. If that's what they want, I can easily stay in the background and just engineer and don't throw another opinion into the mix. So it's everything in between those two extremes.
You want to tell me about getting together with the Coffis Brothers? Kind of curious to know how that came about and what that collaboration's been like.
Yeah, so they were, you know, they're probably about 20 years younger than me. Well,
Yeah.
there's a range of age within the band, but you know, they're like pretty much a generation younger than
Yeah.
I am. And they had been around for a while already. They started playing young. The brothers have been singing together since they were little kids. Kellen and Jamie. Jamie's the older brother, and Kellen is the younger brother. And they have a rock band that some of the guys that they grew up with. And it's probably been, I'm not good with dates and
Yeah.
history, but probably about 10 or 11 years ago, they approached the Mother Hips. They wanted to open some shows,
Yeah.
and they did. And I just hit it off with them. I liked them a lot. They're just, their personalities and their music just was something that I liked and felt comfortable around. And so just being a little bit older than them and having gone through a lot of experiences that they were about to go through,
Yeah.
we just had a nice relationship of me kind of helping them through certain things that they might have questions about. And I only have my own experience. It's not like I know everything about rock and roll, but I know what my experience was, which can be helpful.
In taking on this kind of a mentor role, if I can call it that, for them, was that something that you felt like you could pass on that someone had done for you, or is that something that you wished you had when you were like their age?
More the latter. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that for whatever reason, Greg and I and the other guys in the band at the time, we didn't really have a whole lot of mentors around us that Not sure why. It's probably our own fault. I think we were kind of cocky, and we were sort of maybe a little bit closed off to people telling us what we should and shouldn't do.
I mean,
Um,
that's a double-edged sword, right?
it is because
Making
yeah,
real original music too.
we did it our own way, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a unique sounding band because of that. But in retrospect, I wish we had listened to more advice from people that were smarter than us. Um, but it doesn't matter. It makes that's a pointless thing to say because it's gone. It's the past is the past.
Well, that feeling maybe can find some expression in what the relationship you've developed with the Coffis brothers, give them the thing that you maybe wished you had. So,
Yeah, exactly. It's something that I learned to value as I got older. And it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I'm gonna hook up with these younger guys and I'm gonna tell them what to do. It had nothing to do with that. It was very organic, but it's fun to. It's one of the cool things about getting older. One of the few cool things about getting
really,
older
okay, hit me.
is that people. I don't know. You do come to realize that I should speak for myself. I have come to realize that I have um, accrued a lot of experience, and that can be valuable to some people, and it feels nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to try to help people that through things that they might not have the experience to have the right perspective, and it does it's I don't it's never unsolicited on my part, but at least I don't think so. I try not to be a person like that. But yeah, if you can be helpful and help steer someone to make good decisions, then why not? It feels good.
So thinking about the Coffis brothers a little more, um, I really actually, Tim, I want to ask you, I think in 2019, you put out the rearranged version of The Only Solution.
Yeah,
And last time that I saw you with the Coffis brothers in Chico, that was one of the highlights of the show to me.
cool.
And probably I'm not the only one who really appreciates the way you redid that song. Um, but I guess if you don't mind talking about a little bit about that rearrangement, that re-recording, and also just the question, are they backing you on that song? Is that the Coffins brothers or some of them on there?
The recording of that song was not the Coffis Brothers. That was a band that I um, had auditioned the people on a trip to Nashville.
Okay.
So that was, well, actually, no, it was a drummer's name is Dom Billett, and he's a fabulous drummer who's actually become more of a songwriter himself. I mean, he always was, but I think he doesn't play drums as much anymore. He's a Nashville guy, much younger than me. And he kind of helped me figure out how to turn that, like the original only solution is like a waltz. Like here, I'll show you. It's like, and then we changed the key. We did everything different, but it was like, he stepped on stage most nights, contemplate, whatever the chords are, but 3/4 time, like a waltz. Like I like
Yeah.
to write a lot of waltzes, but it's. I wanted, I liked the sentiment of the words quite a bit, and I wanted to sort of reimagine the song, and so Dom helped me sort of figure out how to do it in 6/8, which is a much more, it can be a much more rock and roll feel. Dun, 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 dun. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it's just in 4/4. Not 6/8. But it's really hard to change a, a waltz into a rock beat. So it was in the phrasing of the words had to change a little bit too. But
Yeah.
that was Dave Schools from Widespread Panic was playing bass, and Dom Billett was playing drums, and I think James DePreto, who's a fabulous guitar player. He plays with Chuck Prophet mostly, and it was those guys that we did that song and a bunch of other songs too. But it was just like a just incredible musicians, all of those guys.
Well, I thought that was the Coffis Brothers because they really nailed it, and it sounded
They
a
do.
lot like the album. That I'm not sure what the atmospherics are in the background, kind of swirling around there,
Just
but
like feedback, a good electric guitar just distorted and feeding back a lot. But yeah, the Coffis Brothers are so talented that they just they have so many of their original songs, but when it comes to like learning songs well, they're really good at that. Like I think in the last few years they've become John Craigie's backup band, and
I don't know John Craigie.
John Craigie is a very talented. He's younger. He's probably more like their age writer, um, and he's very popular.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know. I think they're just friends with him, but they started backing him up. Like they're playing at High Sierra Music Festival with John backing him up this year, which is great. So they're just really good at coming into a situation and playing what needs to be played, whether that's copying a recording or just coming up with their own
Yeah.
parts for it. But that's one of the reasons I love them so much. They're just hard workers. They're super talented. They don't have ego. They just like do what it takes to do it, which is a nice combination.
What does it mean to you to play out with the Coffis Brothers and to do your solo material? And what kind of a separation is there for you? How do you know, for example, like when you're developing a song, whether it's a hip song or whether it's, going to go in that solo bag? Is that a thing you consider? How does that shake out?
I I I don't really. I try not to consider that too much. I try to just write music that I feel like writing,
Yeah.
and then pretty quickly into that process, I could guess like this one would be a good Mother Hip song, or this one won't work for that. But I won't stop writing it because of that. I'll just have confidence that it will show up in another way somewhere else. And Greg does the same thing, Greg Loicono,
Yeah.
excuse me, from the Mother Hips. He does the same thing. We just kind of write what we want to write, and then if it will work for the Mother Hips, then it becomes a Mother Hips song. And if it doesn't, then it usually becomes a song for one of our own solo projects.
Mhm.
It's not really that conscious. It's just sort of like once it starts forming, you can kind of figure out where it would be the most appropriate. That's
Yeah.
probably why Greg and I both have our solo bands, is so that we can still play the songs that don't get picked up by the Mother Hips band.
Hard to say how you know. You're referring to it's shaking out and this kind of thing as it comes along. For the most part, like I think I've heard you play Esmeralda maybe with the Coffis Brothers.
Yeah, they'll play
But
any Mother Hips song. They know most of them, and they'll learn them. The tricky ones, they'll learn them, and they can probably play like 20 Mother Hips songs at least, if not more. And
it
we
seems
will,
like,
and we do that. We will play some of them, but as far as choosing them goes, like a lot of that has to do with like kind of what's just about to happen for me and for the Mother Hips. We're starting to make a new record, and so we're
yes,
writing music, and Greg and I will sit around and play each other what we have, and sometimes we'll try to meld those ideas together. That's our favorite thing.
yeah,
But whether we do or not, we sort of we'll talk about it and say, yeah, that we don't really need another song that sounds like that. That one might be better to not use. And then John, the drummer, and Brian, the bass player, will kind of chime in also. We'll play them stuff, and it's not quite like a democracy, but if everyone's into it, then we'll go forward with it, whether it's a rocking song or whether it's a mellow song. But if someone is like sort of like, I don't really, not really feeling it, then we'll just put that one aside and move on to the next. So it's kind of like the feeling of what is going to work well for a Mother Hips song is kind of a band decision. It's just sort of obvious. You can read people's, even if they don't say anything, you can sort of
Sure.
tell if someone's into, it's that way with anything. If you pitch an idea to someone, you can tell pretty much right away if they really like it or if they're just
Yes,
being
you can.
polite or if they're just bored. They just don't, they're not interested. And so as the songwriters of the band, Greg and I can kind of take those cues and say, yeah, maybe this isn't the right. Let's try another song. It just sort of becomes obvious. We've been doing it together for so long that there's no hiding people's feelings,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, this is really fun. I think maybe I should let you go and look forward to the show this weekend.
Yeah, we'll catch up more on Sunday.
That sounds real good. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I've really enjoyed it a
Likewise,
lot. So
my
thanks so
pleasure.
much, and Godspeed on your way up.
Thank you. I'll see you in a couple days.
That sounds good, Tim. Take
All
care.
right, bye.